Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and as always, thank you so much for joining me here live on Sunday mornings or at your convenience. Just a reminder for those who may not be on Facebook that my soulful conversations are all archived on my YouTube channel. You can go watch those, or anyone might be interested not on Facebook. The channel is youtube.com// Inspire YOUTV. So there you have it. So thanks again for joining me. Just a reminder, if you have any prayer requests or sharing your good news, please let me know. I'll add you to the list. And you can go to my website, charlottemcginnis.com, and click on the prayer ministry icon. Or you can just text me on Facebook or whatever. So there you have it. Well, we've been blessed with a lot of rain, and thank you, God, no flooding here close to us. Good morning, Dawn. Good to see you. So it's beautiful. The sun's coming out today, and our plants and flowers and grass are very happy. So the weather's cooled a little bit too, so really grateful for that, and just grateful to be here with you all, and just grateful to be alive. So there you have it. Well, today I'm going to go deep into forgiveness and come at it from a lot of different angles. Try to really get us motivated, inspired, and recognize the power of forgiveness, the need for forgiveness, and our own awakening or remembrance of who we are in truth, and how it has a ripple effect that impacts and affects the entire universe and every soul. So forgiveness, to me, the Course in Miracles says that forgiveness is our only function here, ultimately. And we're going to get into that a little more when we get into the Course aspect of this. We're going to come at it, as I said, from a few different angles, and we'll just see where it leads us. And feel free to ask questions, share your forgiveness thoughts, or what have you. Love to hear it and talk about it. So before I get started, I think we all do recognize. Good morning, Janet. Happy Sunday to you. I think we all know that where we're withholding forgiveness, where we're thinking that we're choosing to be right over being happy, we're not willing to let go of certain stories that we tell, and I think that's nothing to beat ourselves up for. I don't think it's anything to reinforce guilt, but rather just a recognition of, okay, I'm still holding on to this, and I really know that it would be in my best interest and the best interest of everyone and everything if I could really work through this and heal it. So we're going to talk about that. And I think we can all, if you think about it, we all know where we're still withholding love or light. So I'm going to start. You know, we've heard from Scripture, Jesus says to forgive 70 times 7. And, you know, actually, I'll be honest with you, I had heard that many times, and to me it's just a powerful statement, but I didn't really understand the point of the numbers. And so I looked it up, and it's very interesting. It says forgiving 70 times 7 symbolizes unlimited forgiveness, calling believers to forgive others repeatedly without keeping count, just as God forgives us. And so I think that that's so powerful. The number in itself, 70 times 7, I think is what, 490? It's really a number that does not meant to be taken literally, but rather it is a Hebrew. See, we're getting a little Bible lesson here. It's a Hebrew expression for an infinite number of times. So, you know, to infinity and beyond, we really need to be willing to forgive 70 times 7. So for me, that just means if I am still holding a grievance or a story, to just keep repeating that forgiveness process. And we're going to talk about different ways to do that. Well, this phrase, forgiving 70 times 7, is from Matthew, where Peter asked Jesus how many times he should forgive a brother who sinned against him. Suggesting 70 times 7, Jesus responds, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. emphasizing that forgiveness should have no limit and cannot be quantified. This teaching follows Jesus' discourse on church discipline and restoration, highlighting that forgiveness is central to Christian character and relationships. So again, coming at it from a little different angle, we're going to explore many angles, but to recognize that all the world's major religions, I think the more elevated thought teachings, philosophies, all emphasize the power of forgiveness. And actually how the lack and unwillingness to forgive is actually holding us back. So if we really understood the power of it, we'd never hold a grievance again. I do know that. So couple of things that we can recognize with this, coming from this angle, 70 times 7. How do we do it practically? Well, it is an act of love and mercy, not a sign of weakness or tolerance of wrongdoing. So if that tape or that story is playing in your head, to realize that we're really hurting ourselves and not the situation or the other person, because it's all in our own mind, right? Of Course in Miracles talks about its healing of our own mind. It really has nothing to do with anything out there. So it's not a sign of weakness, but rather strength. And so if we really understood the true meaning, which I'm choosing to impart today, and see if we can take our forgiveness game a little deeper, that would be awesome. So when we forgive, it frees the forgiver from bitterness, anger, and resentment, promoting peace and reconciliation. Unlimited forgiveness reflects God's grace and encourages a continuous attitude of compassion in relationships. And I think that is great. I love that. It's an extension or reflects God's grace and encourages that constant attitude of compassion. So when we're willing to forgive, and we're gonna build up on this, as I said, it really does change the whole game. It really elevates our ability to give and receive love. It elevates our ability to see beyond the veil of insanity, of sin meaning loveless perception, missing the mark, however you want to perceive that. I don't think sin is actually just an opportunity to reflect and recognize where we're still holding on to a story or a grievance or what have you. So this one, I'm going to share the Christian perspective, continue with this rather, and then we're going to get into a little different spin on this. But to build on this, forgiveness does not require forgetting or immediate reconciliation. It's about releasing the debt of offense and choosing mercy. In essence, Jesus' instruction to forgive 70 times 7 calls us to embrace a lifestyle of forgiveness, mirroring God's boundless mercy and fostering healing in both personal and communal relationships. So forgiveness does not require forgetting or immediate reconciliation. Well, as we move further into this conversation, I would say that as we've been recognizing in our classes, both the book study on Wednesday of Joel Goldsmith and our Course in Miracles group, which incidentally everyone's invited to join us, is that we're moving up the ladder. And every time we take these truths into our heart, act upon those, live by those, we're lifting that veil and we recognize a more mature approach to life spiritually, I would say. So, good morning, Noella. Happy to see you. So I think that as we move up this ladder, there's certain things that keep us from keeping that slow and steady elevation of consciousness, letting the light in. And of course, that's always just the unwillingness to let go of being right or my story or what have you. But ultimately, ultimate forgiveness, when we are no longer in non-duality, when we're awake, when we're operating from the total love, we see there's nothing to forgive. So as I want to go back to this just a little bit, forgiveness does not require forgetting. So I do say that part of the process, as we practice this more and more, we begin to focus, it naturally leads us to a place of forgetting. Because if we bring love, God, into our hearts and say, I choose to forgive, even if it starts from like not wanting to or feeling the justified in our stories, whatever it is, that willingness will eventually erase that from our minds. I really do believe that. And I heard a great example on forgiveness from A Course in Miracles perspective. And I do feel that 70 times 7 would also lead us to that, all true forgiveness. But forgiveness is forgetting. In other words, how many times have you heard it said, oh, I forgive you, let's bury the hatchet. But until we remember where that hatchet is buried, we haven't truly forgiven. And so that is the sign of true forgiveness, is forgetting true mercy. The story is erased. So moving forward, back in Florida, 1993, I founded a beautiful center, spiritual center, patterned after Marianne Williamson's centers. It was called the Palm Beach Center for Living. It was an awesome place. We had multitudes of classes and 12-step meetings and spiritual healing and festivals, and brought in great speakers and Sunday service. And it was really a super, super place. And, you know, we had speakers from the very most prominent, famous, whatever that means, to people who might not be as well known, but carried a super powerful message. And one of those people was named Colin Tipping. He came through our doors a few times over the years, and loved the guy. He was a British guy. He came from Atlanta down to our center, I think it was 3 times, and offered he had written a book, which if you haven't read it, if you're really having a struggle with forgiveness, it's really one of the best books written on forgiveness that I've come to know. And it is called Radical Forgiveness, hence the title of my talk today. So Colin Tipping, he came down, and he really upped my awareness. You know, it's like brought me to a deeper place. You know, I've always known, I think we've all known, forgiveness is good, and we all need to do that. But I didn't recognize the multitude of benefits that come from forgiveness and what true forgiveness really is. So he brought forth a great message, carrying with it a lot of practices that you can do. So again, there's even a workbook you can order on Amazon or anywhere, really. The book, Radical Forgiveness, and then there's a workbook. So if you're interested, as I said, you might check it out. So what is radical forgiveness? Well, he developed this, Colin Tipping. It goes really beyond traditional forgiveness practices, which requires the offender's acknowledgement or remorse. Instead, it emphasizes everything happens for a reason. And there's a hidden order and perfection in all events, even those that seem unfair or painful. This approach encourages letting go of the victim mindset and recognizing that challenging experiences are part of a larger spiritual journey, allowing us to release anger, resentment, and guilt while fostering self-love and inner peace. So this is a beautiful expression of, I could not have said it better myself. I think this came from AI, but it is exactly, I was trying to put the words together. Good morning, Laura, happy Sunday. I think that sometimes the universe gives us just exactly what we need, which was this. So, you know, traditional forgiveness, you know, we're all, sometimes in the, you know, a low-level forgiveness, just like there's ladders of prayer and spiritual awakening. Well, you know, the first step is a good step. It's moving in the right direction, but we're still, I'll forgive you, and then that person's going to show remorse, and we build up this other story, and then they don't, or they do something stupid again, and then I get more mad or angry. And then through that, really not much is accomplished except compounding our frustration. So true forgiveness according to his radical forgiveness teachings, is let go of our victim mindset and recognize that challenging experiences are part of our spiritual journey. And that in highlights here, bold print, everything happens for a reason. Well, the Course in Miracles goes on to say that everything is in divine order. Everything is for our best interest, even though it looks yucky, mucky, we hate it, whatever, we're in the story of it, you know, this person's a jerk and that happened and I can't forgive them because blah, blah, blah. Well, how often do we do that, right? Well, you can keep doing it if you want. It just keeps you trapped in that wheel of suffering, and this is the way out. So I remember a friend of mine, not choosing to share names because it's not really the point of this, there's really just a message of how powerful our resistance to forgiveness can be at times. And years ago, a gal that was a good friend of ours up here in the Western North Carolina area developed she had a recurrence with cancer. And with that, this gal knew everything, was a healer, very intelligent, very conscious, did everything by the book, you know, to overcome this second bout with cancer, and, you know, through diet and meditation, and the list goes on and on and on. And there was a time when I spoke to her, and there was a forgiveness issue, which she knew was probably what was building in her body. It was the withholding of forgiveness, anger, resentment towards a person. And through that, she knew, because she was very learned, that she needed to let that go. And she went to work on that with us, someone who really knew that all illness is trapped emotions, and when you can get to that and release it and forgive it, we can be healed often. So fast forward, the story is she went, she came back, said, still not willing to forgive. So needless to say, or that's not a very conscious way to put it, but sadly, or for whatever reason, everything is in divine order. I do believe that. Her life on this earth didn't last much longer. And so I looked at that as it really hit me, and I think it hit a lot of people, as an extreme example of how we, you know, we just feel so justified and righteous. And by golly, I'm just not going to forgive there. And those are, I think, when we open up our hearts, we recognize that's really what this journey in this body on this earth is about. It's a teaching device to show us where we're still not letting in love or light, or extending love or light. So I think her story is something we can all relate to at some level, some point, because I think that we all have a story that we feel justified in holding on to and still saying it over and over. So here's some tips. Here's sort of a little process. Again, the book, Radical Forgiveness, Colin Tipping, will take this into much deeper, but his little 5-step process is, first of all, the first step is tell your story, acknowledge the event and our feelings, and fully experience your anger and sadness and betrayal. So, you know, that's the first step, right? And then we need to allow ourselves to feel, process, and release and recognize the emotional impact of these events. But feel these emotions, don't stuff them in you know, it's about healing means that we're releasing, and when we're stuffing, that's where, you know, generally speaking, a lot of energy healers will say a lot of all sickness is blocked chi, trapped emotions, whatever you want to call it. So we tell our story, let it out, feel the emotions, and then we recognize that maybe it's time to shift my perception about this, recognize that there are lessons and a spiritual purpose behind the situation, which I do believe. I think there are no accidents. There is no mistake. in anything. So once we recognize that, okay, what's the lesson? I've told the story. I felt the crap about it. Now, how can I shift this? I do recognize there's a spiritual lesson here. Well, we, through these practices, we apply these new understandings, and we are beginning to be willing to transform our pain into growth. And ultimately, the benefit of this at the end is we live in radical forgiveness. We embrace a new way of being, and we're free from the emotional burdens of past events. And I think that the thing we have to remember, back to the story of this gal, and I'm sure we all have our story as well, is that her ego, and our ego, I'm not pointing, she's an example, and I know that it was her lesson and she knew that too. This is not a criticism by any means, but it just showed the strength of the ego and its unwillingness to let go. And, you know, once we let go of these emotional burdens, the whole game changes. You know, we reduce stress and anxiety, because I think when we're stressed and anxious and jumpy, it's because, again, there's some trapped emotions that get triggered. Beauty of this is our relationship improve, you know, with all, you know, you see that every person is a divine being instead of someone who is betrayed or what have you. So we improve our relationship. We're more compassionate. We're more, people are more interested in being around us and vice versa. Our self-esteem improves, and the top thing here, I think, is that we have greater emotional freedom, which frees us from past baggage and allows us to be more present and focused in every moment. So just I'd say give ourselves the gift and the blessing of forgiveness, rather than, you know, telling your story over and over and over and over. And for what? Just to justify it, to make it real, and to keep yourself in the muck of, in the heaviness of darkness rather than light. Well, moving on, okay, we've talked 70 times 7. We've heard what Jesus teaches on forgiveness. Colin Tipping's beautiful radical forgiveness. Now we're on to A Course in Miracles. And ultimately, what's the Course say? As I said earlier, our only function in this body, in this dream, is to forgive. Now, this is one of the most, we're building up to I think, next level forgiveness. And, you know, we realize now 70 times 7, be vigilant for forgiveness. Radical forgiveness is taking responsibility, recognizing that everything happens for a reason and it's actually for our greater good. And then the Course goes on to says, there's nothing to forgive. What? So that's like, what do you mean there's nothing to forgive? Well, in the Course, forgiveness is the recognition that perceived, big word, perceived wrongs never even occurred, allowing the mind to release anger and return to love, which ends suffering and restores inner peace. So the definition and core concept of this idea is the Course in Miracles defines forgiveness not as pardoning sin or excusing behavior, but this is the biggie here. This is, I think, where we step up that ladder. Seeing that what we thought our brother did to us never even happened. What the heck? Are you kidding me? It emphasizes all perceived sins or mistakes or illusions, and forgiveness is a process of recognizing their falsity and let them go, thereby returning to unconditional love and the will of God. This perspective reframes our anger, resentments, and judgment as errors in perception rather than the real offenses, highlighting that forgiveness is a path to spiritual awakening and inner peace. So this is a big jump, right? Because now it's saying there's nothing to forgive. They didn't do anything. So really, what this emphasizes, and the point of this is that we are created in the likeness and image of God, which is love. We're all, that's the truth of who every being is. And we're all dreaming a dream that we're and forgotten who we are in truth, and we're playing these roles, looking for meaning and validation, and thinking that we're going to find identity and peace outside of ourselves, which we never will. And we call in these lessons to teach us where we're stuck, okay, to show us where we're stuck. And so we make up these stories, and then we think that forgive them for they know not what they do, right? Well, that was Jesus' big forgiveness statement on the cross. He was so pure in knowing who he was, and recognized that these cruel actions of the Romans were, they just forgot who they were. So he didn't make it personal. He didn't suffer. He didn't identify with it, because he was so solid in his knowing of the truth, which is we're eternal beings. Our soul is changeless, formless, can't be harmed by any of this stuff. So, there's nothing to forgive unless I've made a judgment in the first place. Everything is in divine order. Everything is love. So, for example, I'm recognizing there's situations in the world right now that are a little interesting. They don't seem, they don't align with my picture of what peace and enlightenment look like. And I think there's some actors playing some roles that I'm like, what the? But that's my perception. And, it's really being willing to not feed my perception and my thoughts about it, but rather, just being a channel of perfect love, seeing beyond my judgment, recognizing that all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. In other words, if I have not made a judgment, there'd be nothing to forgive. So if this is elevating our purpose through true forgiveness, is taking responsibility. In just a minute, I'm going to go to the next level of this, and that is the Ho'oponopono forgiveness prayer, which is terrific. It's something I've used for 20-some years. It's really one of the most beautiful and easy ways to work on our forgiveness game here. So the steps in forgiveness that the Course suggests is recognize or acknowledge the source of any perceived problem lies within our own minds. As the external world reflects our beliefs and attitudes, understand that others' actions are not the true cause of our suffering. The Course in Miracles says, I'm never upset for the reason I think. In other words, I think I'm upset because you did this, or you didn't behave the way I thought you should, or this condition or circumstance. But ultimately, we're upset for one reason and one reason only, and that's the belief that it's our attachment. That's really what is Buddhism say, that all suffering is attachment. So once we can let go of our story and our perceptions and our drama and judgment, the whole game changes. Then we have to make a decision to forgive. We have to consciously choose to release our resentments and judgments and decide to stop withholding forgiveness and prioritize love over fear. Well, there you go. There's the answer. And then experience of peace is the final step, is not an active effort, but the result of the Holy Spirit's guidance. When we let go of blame and judgment, the mind experiences true peace and the release of all self-imposed suffering. And so forgiveness is a mindset and a practice. It involves releasing resentments towards self and others, understanding that our perceived transactions are illusions, and allow the Holy Spirit to guide the mind towards peace. So we can meditate, we can read, tune into podcasts, read books, things that support our desire for forgiveness. And I believe that when we do forgive, our minds are transformed and suffering ends. And then we do restore our alignment with divine love, divine truth. And we're making room for the Holy Spirit to work through us. Ultimately, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and in this dream, we're free will beings, so we're choosing to forgive or not to forgive. We're choosing love over fear in every moment. Well, the more we lift that veil, we empower ourselves to be an expression of God's perfect and divine love. So it's a blessing not only to ourselves, but to the entire whole. I and my brother are one. I'm not separate from anything. We're all part of the same universal quantum field, and so ultimately there's nothing to forgive, and there's nothing to hold on to except the divinity that dwells within each and every one of us. So I'm going to move forward here, and this will be the last step on the ladder. And it is the Hawaiian spiritual forgiveness practice, which is the Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. And as I said, I was introduced to this God many, many, many years ago. And it is really, it's the power is in its simplicity. And I'm going to give you a little background story of this, because it really does demonstrate the power of what this is about. And there's a great book, by the way, called Zero Limits. The author of it is Joe Vitale, Vitale. He wrote this many years ago, and it was a story of this Hawaiian healer. He was a psychiatrist. His name was Dr. Hugh Len, Len. You can watch videos on YouTube, by the way, about it. So anyway, this Dr. Len was brought into the psych ward in a prison for the criminally insane, and he was there brought in to evaluate and work with these prisoners. And the interesting thing that he did, and had great success, he never went face to face with these prisoners, apparently. And all he did was prayed over their files. And through this, what he did was he just laid his hands there and repeated this Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Now, what happens, it's through this practice, and this is really building and taking it to really just a more high level of awareness, is through this practice, he was accepting 100% responsibility for everything in these files. In other words, these prisoners, that he saw them in their pure state of being. He saw their divinity. He saw their light. He forgave himself. He scrubbed he always says, clean, clean, clean. You know, we're cleaning up our misperceptions. And so what happens is through this purity of intent and the praying of the files, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. What he was really saying is that, first of all, I'm sorry, we acknowledge, and by doing that, we're acknowledging our part in negativity, most being unconscious, okay? Please forgive me, we're asking forgiveness for ourselves and others, or to the divine. Thank you, we bless this opportunity to heal and learn, and then of course, I love you, sending love to ourselves and others, which promotes healing. So, I do find that really the benefits of this and through this practice, and we had a group, our Course in Miracles group on Friday, and the point brought up, which really takes this to the even higher place of being, because right here we are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Well, ultimately, it's a process, just like 70 times 7. Just like the radical forgiveness steps, just like the Course in recognizing there's nothing to forgive, and the more we practice this, the more we allow ourselves to be a vessel of love, as Jesus and other masters have done and demonstrated to us. So here we are now moving to the Ho'oponopono, this 4-step process. So I recommend, if anything comes into your mind, a story, upset, anger, resentment, allow yourself to breathe into that. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. And when you do that, that's sort of showing up and saying, you know, I choose to, even if you don't mean it, just be a little willingness will go a long way. And then just keep 70 times 7, say that mantra. Well, ultimately, as we elevate and really get that there is nothing to forgive, there is only love. What Barbara reminded us of in our group on Friday is she's in a Ho'opono group in Florida, forgiveness group and circle, and that ultimately the highest level of this is just I love you. It's that unconditional, that agape love. So you don't even have to go through the 4 phrases. It's just I love you, I love you. So that means that that's coming from the place of nothing to forgive. So forgiveness is the most powerful, I think, blessing we can offer to the world. You know, I know we all have our stories and we all have the whatever it is. But ultimately, when we understand that it all comes with beautiful lessons, there's no mistake that these things are coming towards us. And it's really an opportunity, you know, healing is giving and receiving are one in truth. So that could be a call when a brother or sister acts insanely, that could be a call for forgiveness. So when we can recognize that we're all sort of part of this big movie that we're acting in, and that you know, those insane actors are really, it's a call for love. And if I respond in fear, then it's my healing. But if I recognize it, it's as a call for love, and I respond in love, I love you, rather than, you know, you're wrong, and let's go protest and beat up a few people or whatever it is we have to do to make our point. I think that this act of true forgiveness, true love, can just diffuse the intensity that we're going through right now as a soul family in this planet. It's pretty intense. People are pitting against each other, taking sides, being right, blaming, condemning, judging. And the greatest thing we can do is true forgiveness. I love you. And so think about that. When one of the bad actors out there is playing a role, rather than going into the story and carrying banners about it or what have you, seek to be the change you wish to see in the world. Say, that person is, boy, triggering me like crazy, but thank you. I love you. And through that, that's the real purpose. And the more we can practice this rather than vigilantism, we begin to transform not only our own hearts, but the hearts of humanity. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it. And if you feel moved to pass this along or share it, you can do that. And if not, that's okay too. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Take care, everybody. Namaste.